What's the most viral monster truck clip of all time? I think you and I know what it is. Racking up almost 20 million combined views on YouTube. It was covered on late night talk shows. Hell, Arctic Monkeys named a song after it. I'm not even joking. Countless articles and a mystique surrounding it, given that even today, some 8 years on, it has still yet to be replicated. But what's the full story behind this moment? How did we get here? Who's the man behind it? And an argument I've seen some fans levy. Did this run even deserve to win? Let's find out as we dive deeper into arguably the most iconic Monster Jam moment of all time, Lee O'Donnell's front flip. Let's get started. There's many moving parts to this story, so let's start off first with the man who even executed this, Lee O'Donnell. A prominent off-road racer for many years, around the turn of the millennium, Lee started to move to monster trucks, but it was a slow start. He would make some one-off appearances on Monster Jam in 2001 driving Spider-Man, with some intermittent starts, and then again driving Monster Mutt in 2006. But Lee was seen as a journeyman, the ultimate fill-in. For example, he would fill in for Adam Anderson and Taz as he filled in for his dad and Digger in 2007, where Lee would win racing in Orlando. Lee would follow that up in 2008 by filling in for Lindsey Wink in Atlanta, as Wink would be summoned to Detroit early for an event by Ford, and Lee would win racing there as well. This also marked my first time seeing him in person, and even then, he showed himself to be an impressive talent. In between racing stars like Damon Bradshaw and Todd LeDuc, Lee showed he could wield these mechanical beasts just as well. Another stint in Monster Mutt, Lee really showed that if this record's anything to go by, that he is a marquee driver and one that deserved his own ride. And in 2010, he would get just that. A prominent company known for its advanced tech would help give Lee his big break. Stark Industries. That's right. In 2010, to coincide with the return of Marvel, Lee would debut Iron Man. The truck really served him well as he would run strong and would get his first shots at the World Finals. And he would do remarkably well, with strong freestyles and an impressive racing acumen, including a controversial loss to Tom Meents in 2014. Lee showed he had the capability of becoming a champion, and more time in Iron Man would surely yield that. Yeah, with Marvel gone in 2015, Lee would spend a year in the very bizarre Zombie Hunter trunk, one of the most enigmatic trucks in FELD's history. However, Lee still made it work, even winning some hardware, but he had a rougher time at the finals in what would be the truck's sole appearance there. But let's be real, this was in retrospect filler. 2016 would get to the next piece of this puzzle, as VP Racing Fuels would sign a deal to have a new truck driven by Lee. Based off its mascot, it would be known as the Mad Scientist. Lee would be rejuvenated, starting off the season well, including a racing win in San Diego. However, Vegas, the night itself wouldn't pan out for Lee. Still though, it was a strong season, and 2017 started off even stronger, securing multiple racing wins, freestyle wins, and new to that year, overall event wins. Let's be real, a driver with Lee's experience and sponsorship backing, he could stink up the entire season and still make it to the World Finals, but with 3 stadium racing wins and a freestyle win on the season helped make his case all the more prominent. Despite being someone who seemed to hop from seat to seat, he definitely showed his prowess behind the wheel. I want to shift gears for a minute before we get to the 9th question and talk about the history of the front flip. By 2017, backflips were especially common. Every stadium event had at least 2 or more trucks cracking one off. It was basically down to a, pun not intended, science at this point. Mainly, this is down to the physics of the move. Trucks hit large curved wall, rotate 360 degrees, lands. Really, once the trench box became the norm, backflips were basically figured out to where, with the right approach, it can be done with relative ease if you knew what you were doing. The front flip, however, was wildly different because you needed momentum to turn the truck all the way forward. Tom Meents attempted this in 2015 in East Rutherford with a special ramp, and yet despite the testing and getting an insane launch, the truck did not rotate the full 360 degrees. However, if you look through history, the rough theory was there. Rod Schmidt in Atlanta 2014 would wheelie into a car stack, rotating Monster Mutt Rottweiler but not landing. Another Escalade truck and Escalade in 2008 would also get close with fill-in Charlie Pauken behind the wheel, leading to a violent wreck which left Pauken injured. While the risk was high for this move, the seed was there. If you could wheelie into a ramp and hit it with the right speed at the right angle, maybe it was possible. I don't think anyone really thought at the time of the full potential, because it was never done before. And who would risk ending their run early or possible injury for something that may not work at a regular season event when a backflip is much more consistent and can get the same reward? Well, what if it wasn't a regular event, but a marquee one? Let's get to the actual event, the thing you're all here for. The 18th running of the Monster Jam World Finals, the event that would put Lee not only in the record books, but also in the mind of millions. Looking at the offset though, you wouldn't think this was the case. Lee qualified literally right in the middle of the bracket at 16th and lost in round 1 to Mark McDonald and El Toro Loco thanks to red lighting. Later that night, Neil Elliott in an encore would complete the first forward momentum backflip over Son of a Digger, the racing champion. Keep Neil's name in mind, it will become important here in just a little while. Night 2 would be freestyle, and Lee would be right smack dab in the middle. Let's take a moment to look at Lee's freestyle record. Lee's would be a tale of two sides. On some nights, he would be on. Out of his first 4 attempts, only one would he fail to finish the top 8. However, middling scores in the next 3 years had him a bit of a slump. Early on the night, the reincarnation would escalate Mohawk Warrior with newcomer Bryce Kenny would set the early bar before being blasted by Jim Kohler in his new Avenger 3, with arguably the best run he's ever had in Vegas, certainly the best to never win. Jim would set an insanely high 9.240. Oh yeah, another aside, this was the first time JudgesZone.com would be utilized. The standard of MonsterJam scoring since this night, this marked the very first time every fan had the power to vote on a run using their phone and a sliding scale from 1 to 10. This feature is divisive if not outright controversial, but tonight it will play a pivotal role in the story, but more on that later as well. Lee would start off his run strong, getting some nice solid jumps. The track in itself was basically a slight variation on 2016's, with some changes made as that year's track was an absolute truck killer, including Lee. Lee, however, would have a really strong run going, including a backflip with 19 to go on the clock. Honestly, if his run ended here, this would be considered his best since 2013. Then Lee would hit a ramp, get into a slap wheelie, and... he landed this perfectly, with both front tires on the down ramp. Had he been a bit off on either side, he would have crashed hard. And as far as we know, this wasn't practiced or rehearsed. Lee just took his chance, floored it, and left it in God's hands. Lee would roll the truck off the backflip container right after, perhaps in shock of what he just did. Lee would of course take the lead with a 9.355. Ironically, in his post-run interview, Lee cites Pauken as the inspiration for this move. When it was all said and done, truck after truck tried, but it could not be done as Lee O'Donnell would secure his first title. The man pulled off a move never seen before and was rewarded handsomely for it. Do you hear that? Yeah, in some circles, people argue this run wasn't the worthy champion. A trend that had been going in the last 2 years, and despite the level of skill here, people argue Lee's run shouldn't have won. Who do they feel was worthy? Well, it's now time to check in on our old friend Neil Elliott. Neil will be second to last, and he would also deliver some big air, a backflip, and a reverse backflip, something that hadn't been done before. If you want to beat a first-time run, deliver another one. He would finish his run with an insane save and end up a close second with a 9.316. Let's also go back to JudgesZone.com and talk about diminishing returns. One thing in my very professional research that I've noticed is a fair amount of time on JudgesZone, early/mid-pack runs will score higher because the fans will see something wild first, and then any run after gets lower and lower scores. Novelty reigns over overall consistency. Looking at both runs though, I can see an argument for both, but let's be frank here right now. No, not him. Had Neil won, you would be in the comments saying Lee should have taken the crown. Don't argue with me otherwise, I know you would. Take nothing away, these are both great runs, and honestly, if Neil's happened any other year, he would be a champion. But alas, Neil would have to remain the best and never take a crown. But we'll get to that on a later day. Rarely do monster trucks go as viral as this. Ironically, the last time I can think of monster trucks going this viral was when Neil did his absolutely bombastic freestyle in Orlando 2012. Stephen Colbert? Yep, he mentioned it. Wired? There too. Sports Nation? Absolutely. Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, anywhere that you could share, people saw it, even through the Washington Post. This wasn't just contained to the automotive realm. Mainstream publications were talking about this for weeks following. Hell, go check on Reddit and every now and then it will go viral there even 8 years on from the night of the move. Here's the other wild thing too. To this day, this has not been successfully recreated. People have tried, most notably Craig Champion in 2022 and Nick Pagliarulo last year in 2024. But there's a mystique around this because not only was Lee the first one to do it, he's also the only one. He stands alone. When the backflip was novel, being the first to do it was seen as a massive accomplishment. And while these early ones are still memorable, it can be easy to get lost in the fold of the hundreds done since then. When Ryan Anderson later did the first moonwalk that year in Syracuse, it was seen as mind-blowing. Now from the small speedways to the biggest stadiums, people do moonwalks on a regular basis. The front flip has stayed historic because it has yet to be duplicated. Only one driver in the history of sport has landed front flip, Lee. And as far as we can tell, it may stand that way for a long time to come. What happened following that night? For Lee, he would compete in the off-season swing of stadiums, even securing one of the first two-wheel skill wins in Minneapolis, as he was also getting the hang of this newfangled moonwalk thing. 2018 would also show him perform exceptionally well on his tour, securing a season title to go alongside his reigning title, which given his tour featured Ryan Anderson, Mikey Vaughters, and he definitely had stiff competition, but still showed he was one of the best. However, our old friend, the freestyle champion Kurtz, reared its ugly head on Lee, as he would finish far from the top at 25th. Ironically, that's also the spot he had in the freestyle order. In the summer swing, Lee would clinch up another freestyle win, but following Foxborough in June, Lee would announce his sudden retirement and the retirement of the truck. This is the other enigmatic part of that night. Less than a year and a half after his championship night, and Lee was out of the sport. Lee would not disappear from racing entirely, however, as he is a frequent competitor at the Mint 400 and Baja 400, even being reunited with old friends like Damon Bradshaw and Cam McQueen. Still though, if you look at his Instagram page today, it says, yeah, I'm the guy that front flipped a monster truck. Amazing. Who the next person is to crack off a front flip, I don't know, and I think it's going to be hard for people to really know. But one thing's for certain, on that night, a racer, a legendary figure, cemented himself as not only one of the best of all time, but also up in the record books and the memories of millions, probably more than many other before him and many after him. Lee went down as a legend that night, and will remain so until the end of time. But anyways, I've gone off track, and I'll see you all next time.